Hello, people. I'm Jaby Koay, joined by Achara Kirk.
What's up, people?
We're looking at a Netflix India movie trailer, TORBAAZ. You can tell us how it's pronounced in the comments below. This is the official trailer from Netflix India. Sanjay Dutt, Nargis, Fakhri. I think I got that within the proximity of correct. It says a refugee camp, young kids, and a determined cricket coach.
Oh my God.
TORBAAZ is the story of one man who rises above his personal tragedy and decides to take matters in his own hands. He's determined to coach refugee camp kids in cricket who are otherwise destined to become suicide bombers. Will he succeed in straying them away from the path of destruction? So this comes out December 11th.
Oh, that sounds like a feel-good movie right there.
मैं यहाँ आपके रेफ्यूजी कैंप में बच्चों के लिए क्रिकेट ट्रेनिंग कैंप खोलना चाहता हूँ।
हाल ही में मगरिबी फौज ने एक और जोरदार हमला हमारे खिलाफ किया।
अब इनका मरकज इनके ठिकानों पे इनका कब्र बनेगा। We will achieve this by making our children suicide bombers.
No.
हम मरता नहीं, हम शहीद होता है।
यही खोया था मैंने आर्यन मीरा को। तुम्हारी जितनी तबाही तो नहीं देखी मैंने, लेकिन अपनों को खोने का गम मैं समझ सकता हूँ। देखो, वहाँ आके खेलो, तुम सबसे आगे निकलोगे। मैं ऑक्सीजन मास्क ये देख।
ये जो रिफ्यूजी कैंप के बच्चे हैं, अपने जिस्म के ऊपर बम बांधकर खुद के साथ न जाने कितने मासूमों की जान ले लेगा।
एक शर्त तो लगेगी ही लगेगी। मेरी टीम आपके टीम के साथ खेलेगी। रेफ्यूजी कैंप में रहने वाले बच्चे टेररिस्ट नहीं होते, बल्कि वो टेररिज्म का पहला शिकार होते हैं। मुझे एक अच्छी टीम चाहिए, बस।
रफ्तार और मगरिबी लोग काबुल में बेखौफ बैठा है।
अब हम उनको वहीं घुस के मारेगा।
हमें क्रिकेट से कोई तकलीफ नहीं, मगर ये बच्चा, ये हमारा सिपाही है। इनको बड़े काम के लिए तैयार किया है।
अरे उनके हाथों में बल्ले पकड़ा कर देखें।
इन बच्चों को जरूरत उम्मीद की, भरोसे की। तुम 5 वक्त की नमाज पढ़ते हो अपने मकसद की, और मैं 5 वक्त की नमाज पढ़ता हूँ इन बच्चों के लिए।
That feels like one emotional ass movie.
Yeah, I know. I was already getting like my eyes were getting a little bit prickly just watching that. It looks lovely. I mean, it tells you pretty much everything you need to know in the description, and then you watch the trailer and you're like, oh yeah, it's quite lovely.
So there's a movie called Chalang. Someone in the comments
I remember
mentioned
we watched the trailer for that. I was actually thinking about that because I was racking my brains and I was like, I feel like we watched another trailer for something that was a similar storyline, but I think it's not that the story is unoriginal, because I feel like there is this correlation between playing sports and particularly team sports and like helping kids.
Yeah, but the terrorism aspect is a totally different angle.
Yes, granted, but I feel like I've heard of stories as well of people helping. I don't know if it's like refugee kids or underprivileged kids, but like helping them to play football or.
Yeah, but yes. However, it's terrorists. You're not getting it. Like, this is a totally different.
I get it.
This is totally different. Like, yeah, we've had a similar situation in friendlier scenarios, like whether it's a, scary neighborhood or whatever, or just this teacher, basically finds his own, he self-actualizes as Rajkumar Rao did in that trailer.
Chalang trailer,
yeah. But this is completely different because you're dealing with a very serious topic here, and it's true what he says in the trailer. Like, kids are the first victims of terrorism, like the ones who get enrolled into it, because you're baking into their psyche at a very young age that they are supposed to fight for this cause, and they're going into battle at the age of 7.
Well, not only that, but they're refugee children, so they've already been victims because they're refugees because of the terrorism, presumably.
That trips me out, and I can only imagine what it's like for soldiers who have to combat that, because I don't even know what I would do if I was faced with a child with a gun in his hand.
Yeah.
Who's been trained to kill me. It's like, 'cause you know, in a regular society, you look at children as these innocent things.
You're supposed to protect them.
You're supposed to protect them.
Yeah.
This craziness generally hasn't been impressed upon their impressionable minds. And then you got to throw all that away when you go into this other place. God, it just trips me out. There's a film from Netflix called Beast of No Nation. It's like another instance where they're focused in on that. And I feel like we don't talk about this enough, child soldiers. I feel like this topic doesn't come up enough lately, and I don't know why we don't talk about it more, and I wish there was more we could do about it, but you see these international conflicts that happen, and it's quite astonishing and horrifying how often children get pulled into the battlefield.
Yeah.
And so to see a story that, you know, helps you escape for just a few moments and give you a little bit of hope, that there's like a way, and I mean, it gives you this insight that if you just teach them something different, they're not going to be that. And it's all about what you're taught that sends you down that road where you think they're the enemy. That's just a very, very extreme tribal mentality that forces you to look at everyone else as the bad guy.
Exactly.
You know?
And the one thing that I really, really liked about this trailer as well, and like, I don't know if this is based on a true story or if it's fictionalized or whatever, but I really liked that Sanjay Dutt's character is also Muslim, because then it's not a case of like, oh, the terrorists are Muslim and they're bad, and therefore it's like once again reinforcing that idea of like, oh, Muslims are extremists, everyone, you know. In the trailer they made a point of showing like the terrorists praying, and then you've got Sanjay Dutt praying as well, and it's like, you can believe in the same faith, and you know, one side is the extremist side, and it's just reminding you like there are good people. Do you know what I mean? Because I just get so sick of the constant narrative of, especially in the West, where it's like, oh no, scary Muslim terrorists and blah blah blah, and it's like giving other law-abiding, upright Muslim citizens of the world who practice like peace and love and just generally being good people a bad name.
Yeah.
But here it's just like reminding us like, actually, that's not the message, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I should probably take some time aside to study that religion to understand it better, because there are people like Sam Harris who do believe that it is fundamentally bad. And just like as a religion, it's just bad in his eyes. I don't know what he knows. I don't know what he's read that would make him believe such a thing. But I feel like I need to read up. This isn't a complete aside, but I feel like I do need to read up on it just to understand it more, because it does seem like a lot of like the religious extremist terrorists come from that religion. I just want to know why. Why does that happen? Like, how did we get here? Is always the interesting question. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just basing my judgment off of the scores of Muslim people that I have encountered in my life, because I grew up in many countries that were predominantly Muslim.
Well,
and
yeah, I mean, to that, isn't it like one of the biggest, in terms of like religions in the world, that has the biggest occupancy? I forget.
I don't know, like, but it's a huge world religion, and like I spent a lot of time growing up in Indonesia, which is majority Muslim. That's the main religion, and then my parents lived in the Middle East for 10 years.
Right.
So,
well, ultimately, what I'm trying to get at is, statistically speaking, with so many people in this religion, like it just seems like, you know, if you don't think about it at a cursory glance, it seems like there's a lot of these, when it's like, well, there's just a lot of people practicing that religion. So the amount of people who are extremists in that religion are higher.
well, yeah, and then also it gets a lot of press coverage too, you know.
That's true. Yeah, exactly.
Like you don't hear as much about the extremist Christian terrorists.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was on the phone with a relative the other day, and she had said something about Muslims, and she's like, what about Muslim extremists? And I go, you know, that's the equivalent of like your southern redneck Christian who's shooting up a school.
Yeah, like the Westboro Baptist.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, we have our versions of that as well.
Yeah.
It's just not as many. But I think that it has something to do with the fact that I haven't read up on this, but I think their numbers in terms of just occupancy of that religion dwarfs ours. so to speak.
Yeah, I don't know.
I could be wrong.
I don't know about that. But like I just like the like really positive, uplifting message of this and that idea of, like you said, let's help the children, let's imprint something else in their minds, because like I was getting so upset just hearing them talk about recruiting the children as soldiers and recruiting them as suicide bombers. It's like how can you not value their lives at all? How can you not have any optimism towards the kids and be like, well, you're just disposable?
Well,
you barely lived.
Because that is why I'm a strong advocate of telling people you are not guaranteed more than this life. Because there's an assumption that there's the greater good for the life afterwards. You're fighting for this other prize, this magical thing that exists in another realm. But it's like you haven't seen it. You've no you know what I'm saying? Like you have no evidence to support that other than you're just going off of like an assumption.
Right.
And that really frightens me that people will do that. It's like, you only know that you have this right now, like this, and that's even questionable. You could be in the Matrix. Like you know what I'm saying? And so, but anyway, just to like backtrack a little bit, I was wrong about my numbers here. Christians actually, they're 31.2% of the world is Christian, and then 24.1% of the world is Muslim. But I would argue...
Still pretty significant, to be fair.
It is quite significant. I would argue that you have more devout Muslims than you have devout Christians. And so there's that,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Christians in the US who are just Christian by baptism or whatnot, but they don't really identify as that. So anyway, that's all ancillary stuff that I sort of get caught up in because it sort of brings it up.
Yeah,
and
I think that's interesting. But like going back to the trailer and to the movie, like I like the feel of Sanjay Dutt in this role, like because he kind of, there's just something about him where he just kind of carries a more like rough and ready, gruff gangster attitude, like just in the way.
Well, for good reason, but sure.
That he is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's just his essence. But it kind of works in this role as well because he's like, I buy him as the guy who has seen tragedy in his own life and is, rough and maybe a little bit careworn and grisly, but he has a lot of love and he wants to teach these kids and help them have a better life.
I like watching him.
Yeah.
I think he's quite good, and he's got a very strong screen presence, which is probably why he's welcomed back so strongly. I mean, as soon as he was able to start working again, like boom, 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 he's just been working like crazy. So
it's like, it's all good.
Yeah.
We'll forgive and forget.
But I really appreciate him throwing his hat into this story, throwing his star power at this story.
Yeah.
Netflix as well. Like I think that this is a very, very powerful story to tell. There's a lot of layers there because it's not just this feel-good movie with him and these kids. It's not just this war story, but it's also the other element of the outside conversation of like, if you just teach these children something different, they won't grow up into that.
Yeah.
And that is such an important conversation. And I think we often forget that, and we just see people as, we sort of like take away the fact that they're a human being and we just see them as a monster. And it's like, no, that's a person that has been impressed upon with certain ideas that are not conducive to peace, essentially.
Yeah.
So anyway, it gives me hope that maybe we'll find a way. How do you get out of this conversation? Peace out.